Repeat from last session. This is just the first question I want to repeat again for anyone who has joined just today. And this is important because, this is actually also important because I will also introduce the format of how we will move today. What I'm going to do is bring questions like these on screen, and these questions will have clues. So here, like X, A, B, C, D, they are all things that you have to guess. So you have to guess what is X, you have to guess what is A, what is B, what is C, and what is D. That's how every question will be. It will have A, B, C, D, E, F, and we have to guess A, B, C, D, and then I will share the answers, and I'll also share some of the explanations. So let me read out the first one. The term X literally means the writing of history. So if you take that writing of history and put it on Google, you will get term X. It literally means that. It is scholarly study of how history is written, right? Therefore, X has different schools of thought. And now what I mean by different schools of thought is, let's say there was a set of evidence that were given to me, historical evidences, and that were given to Karan and Mohini, and we were all asked to write history. We might write completely different versions of history based on the same evidences, same things that were given to us. That's why different schools of thought, right? Depending on the interpretation. It is lot dependent on interpretation, and that's why it develops into many, many different schools of what each historian is talking about. So similarly, India's history, modern history of India especially, is also looked through different schools of X. There are different ways of looking at our own history. Now the first school denies the existence of colonialism. It says that there was no colonialism. What are you talking about? We just came to help you. We just made India better. That's the school A. The second one asserts that of course there was colonialism and we fought against it as a single entity, as a united front, and that's school A. School B. C is also saying that there was colonialism, but it was saying there were two types of conflict that were happening. One against the British, so Indian people against the British, and within the Indian society also there was a lot of conflict. That's school C. And then D is a very recent school, and literally again it means of lower status. The meaning of word D itself is of lower status, and it says that a lot of importance is just given to leaders. Leaders take a lot of limelight. What about the people who made these leaders? What about the people who actually joined their movement or whatever they were proposing? Right? So this is that first question I want to start with, and I'll give you the relevance of why this question. I always want to start with this question whenever I want to talk about history. So any guesses? I think people from the last one can now easily guess, but the people who are new today, can guess. And if you cannot, you should also try Google and write the writing of history in Google and tell me what word comes up. Historiography, yeah. So that's the word X, right? It means writing of history, right? Historiography is writing of history, study of history, scholarly study of how history is written, right? Now under historiography, there are different schools. So the first school is It denies the existence of colonialism, and it belongs to one of the very famous universities in UK.
Basically, they are the Britishers. They deny.
They are the Britishers, yes, they are the Britishers. So this is Cambridge School of Historiography. Cambridge School of Historiography. And to be very honest, there are also Indians who are a part of Cambridge School of Historiography. There are number of Indians who were also Cambridge School of Historiography, saying that colonialism was so very beneficial for India. You know, we progressed under colonialism. Our social emancipation happened for a lot of different class stratas. Economic development happened. So they deny colonialism as such. That's Cambridge School. This one is this one is Nationalist School of Historiography. So Nationalist School is saying that of course there was colonialism and we all came together and fought it. Right? There was
National parties. Basically, some national parties.
Yeah, Indian national movement, basically. Indian national movement against Britishers. So that's the nationalist school. However, what nationalist school constantly keeps saying is that we were always one. Right? They keep asserting that no, there was never a divide. We were always a one country. From Kashmir to Kanyakumari, we were all the same, this, that. But in reality, even today, we can see it's not exactly true. Right? There was a lot of regional divide, caste divide, religious divide, ethnicities, number of different divides that were present, but slowly through the national movement, we put those divides aside and still rose as a single front. But it took time. It was not like sudden. And that is what School C is talking about. That, you are saying we were all one and this and that, but there were always these internal conflicts that were happening. And that is, I think you all must have heard this school name. It's called Marxist School of Historiography. Marxist school everywhere across the world will always talk about the class conflict. Always. Because Karl Marx, he gave a materialistic view of history. That everything in history is just based on materialism. Means who has money, who has land will dominate over who doesn't have it, and that's how class in the society will be divided. So that's the Marxist view, and they say that yes, nationalist, there was fight against colonialism, but there was also internal struggle that was going on. And then D is, as I said, very recent. It's called subaltern. That's the word. Actually, subaltern was a word that was used in Europe a lot of, like, to demarcate lower classes. So that's the subaltern school of historiography, which says, too much limelight goes to leaders like Bose, Gandhi, Nehru, Patel. All of these people take a lot of limelight. What about the people who came together and made these people leaders, who actually took a lot of risk in doing that? So they are talking about their perspective. So does that make sense? Why I want to start with this question always is, the fight. History is a very sensitive topic for all of us. There are fights over history. Even today, if you see, lot of fight over history. This happened, that happened. Oh, that person said something wrong. Now we are trying to change it. Lot of fight happen over history just because of these schools. These schools are the ones that are creating. And therefore, sometimes what happens is, we read a history written by someone without even knowing which school of historiography they could be belonging to. And because we don't read history a lot, we might have only one opinion of that school of thought, and then some other person will have read some other book from some other school of thought, and that results into fighting. No, but this is what happened. No, this is what happened. So that is exactly why fights happen. right? And history therefore is a very contentious topic always. So
For example, in Delhi, there's the Aurangzeb Road, there's the Babur Road, there's the Humayun Road, all the roads are there. All those persons who did lot of injustice to the local population. Their big roads and all. going after them. No,
Yeah.
distortion of history.
no, absolutely. See, I'll tell you, like, now what this is one thing that keeps coming up nowadays, is that first 60 years after independence, not a lot of voice was given to what happened locally, and lot of, what do you say, like, there was a slight Marxist leaning towards history in the first 65 years of our country. And then with the current ruling government, there is a lot of revision now that has started happening. But in my opinion, it also goes somewhat to the other extreme sometimes. Exactly. And that is something, as a history student, you have to be very cautious about, right? I would, as a history student, want to know what everyone is saying without going too much on either side. And the reason I say that is because when you study history, like for example, even history is being made right now. Someone will write about us, right? But on the ground, it's never that extreme, you see. Right? Like someone will write like a very broad picture of India today, 70 years later, and might paint very extreme picture on one side or the other, but we won't be there, we would be dead. But if they come and ask us, like, how was your life? We will say, like, we were having a quiz. So what I'm trying to say is, like, that is the reason. How do you hold that balance to understand and develop better perspective? Okay, great. Now I'll skip a lot of questions from before, and I'll now move to this one. So in the last session, we covered until almost 1767 Battle of Buxar is where we ended. Now I want to move from there. So the questions today are going ahead of 1764. Yeah. This one is very local in nature, of course. So, driven by ambition, after the murder of his nephew, A approached East India Company authorities in Bombay for military aid, signing the Treaty of B in 1775. This sparked a bizarre administrative conflict. The Governor General in Calcutta, C, furious at Bombay's unauthorized actions, annulled the agreement and sent his own envoy to sign the Treaty of B with Maratha ministers instead. However, confusing orders from London reignited the war, leading to a disastrous British defeat at the Battle of E, where they were forced to sign a humiliating convention. It took years to salvage British reputation, finally ending with the Treaty of F, which secured a crucial 20-year peace. And of course, like, there is a bonus also there, which is the Maratha statesmen who outmaneuvered the British during this period, often called the Maratha Machiavelli. Yeah, so that one is the easy one. Nana Fadnavis. This bonus one is Nana Fadnavis. So in India's modern history, whichever school you read from, everyone claims that it was Nana Fadnavis who knew the schemes of British from before, because everyone was seeing them as like arms supplier, every other kingdom. Only Nana Fadnavis was able to see that there is a larger, scheme to what they are trying to do in India. But of course, he couldn't get his own people united, right? So this is Nana Fadnavis. This one is the famous one? Raghova. This is Raghova.
But Kankavala Khacha, that
Yes, absolutely. His own uncle was. So that's one thing, that there is this very famous question that is asked in, that was asked in UPSC exam, that Marathas were individually very gallant warriors but lacked the corporate spirit to become the biggest empire in India. Right? So I think that this is what the fun part is. So this is Raghunath Rao. He approached the British in Bombay. Now this is very interesting. At that time, these were not British. These were operating as East India Company. They were still a corporate entity. So you can say it was like a Bombay office and Calcutta office. And because the seat of Governor General was in Calcutta, Bombay was supposed to take orders from Calcutta, but they would not. So he approached East India Company authorities and signed the treaty with them and gave away 2 islands in that treaty. तुम ये आइलैंड मेरा रख लो और मेरे साथ ट्रीटी कर लो. Yes, so that island he gave were Treaty of Baisin and Treaty of Salsette and Baisin. ये जो 2 आइलैंड थे ये दे देता है रघुनाथ राव. और उससे क्या होता है, द गवर्नर जनरल इन कैलकाटा, हु वाज द गवर्नर जनरल, एनी गेस? द फेमस वंस यू नो, एक्चुअली ही इज वन ऑफ देम. Robert Clive, we remember. Robert Clive was gone by this time. This is the one who came right after Robert Clive. Warren Hastings. So this is Warren Hastings, who was the Governor General, who said कि क्यों कर रहे हो तुम ये treaty, because he understood this complexity that Raghunath Rao is the Maratha, rest of the Marathas are not with Raghunath Rao. So he got scared and he said, why are you doing this treaty? He annulled the agreement. Okay? And sent his own envoy to sign this treaty. This is where Nana Fadnavis comes in. This treaty was signed with Nana Fadnavis. Treaty of D. Second, by that time there was second Baji Rao, yes. But ये 2 treaty कौन सा है? Any guess? Surat. Surat is, which one is Surat? Okay, let's go ahead. And then, however, okay, and then this led to a war. Why? Because there were orders from London कि ये कोई treaty वीटी मत करो, हम लड़ाई करेंगे. And Marathas defeated British very badly, making Warren Hastings suggestion come true कि ये सही suggestion था. Somewhere near Khandala. Yes. And then finally then the Maratha war के बाद एक treaty होगा. This is that war के बाद का treaty. खड़की बाद में आएगा. Actually, the thing is कि Maratha Empire was so big that battles with Maratha Empire have happened like almost all across India places. So, okay, let's go ahead. So, the second की जगह ये पहली वाली treaty was Surat, Raghunath Rao. I think you guessed the Surat one right. So Surat is right. This is the one where Salsette and Baisin का जो island है to British. We will do Treaty of Purandar with the Maratha minister Nana Fadnavis, who was representing the rest of Maratha Empire. He was saying कि राघोबा हमारे साथ नहीं है, हम अलग हैं, तुम इसकी बात मत मानो. Then the orders from London comes and they say कि वो treaty भी annul करो और लड़ाई करेंगे. So this is where the battle happened. Battle of Taliban. अच्छा.
That Sakand fort is still there. What did they call it?
So that is where they were defeated and then they signed the Treaty of Shanghai. ये बहुत important question है, like in the flow of things, is that if you see here, this one, which secured crucial 20-year peace. This treaty happened in 1782. And then 20 years later, Second Anglo-Maratha War happened. And in those 20 years, British were able to capture a massive part of India because there were no Marathas to fight with. Because they were the most dominating power at that time, and this actually helped British a lot that they were not fighting with Marathas then for those 20 years. They consolidated their position and then they removed Marathas after that. So this is why this was very important treaty for British.
So Raghuba was Bajirao Balwant's second son.
Yes, yes.
Nara Fadis could foresee this kind of situation.
He did. But you will see that there was never a final agreement between different Maratha confederacies had Bhosles, Scindias, Holkars, Peshwas, couldn't agree to it. Gayakwads, 5 of them, couldn't agree to a singular plan. So he did see it, but they could never come together to fight together. So basically he was very late in finally. Yeah?
But Nana Patnaik also told Bajirao not to send armies after the Battle of Panipat.
Yeah, he did. But that is what I'm saying, more you go into Maratha history, that is what you keep figuring out. That they were never aligned on things. Right? Because a lot of suggestion came कि इतना north मत जाओ. There is no need. वैसे भी उस time Delhi में कुछ हो भी नहीं रहा था. Delhi was not important after the fall of Mughals anymore. So no one wanted to go that far. Soldiers were tired by the time they reached Panipat. Lot of Maratha army soldiers settled in those areas after Battle of Panipat. They never returned back. Okay, so this is what happened during 20-year peace. This is what happened. Right? So what happened was, after Treaty of Salbai, what they did was, they said कि you will not even help anyone now against us. So almost like Marathas became a buffer state for them, that इनसे कोई डर नहीं है, we'll figure it out. And they used that time to isolate and win Mysore. And Nizam of Hyderabad was anyways not fighting as he should have been fighting. Right? So he was anyways compromised. So Mysore became the empire that they won in those 20 years. So in those 20 years, you will have Anglo-Mysore wars. Hyder Ali के साथ वाला तो Hyder Ali जीत गया था, पहला Anglo-Mysore war. But second, third and fourth, British kept winning, and then finally they will win Mysore as well. So this is why that 20-year peace was so crucial for British.
What about Bijapur?
हाँ. So this actually, even I would love to know.
Bijapur, she is asking what about Bijapur? That time it was part of Hyderabad Empire. Golconda.
हाँ, Golconda, yes, part of Hyderabad Empire. Yeah. Also, you know what? I'll tell you, when British started expanding in India, there were lot of principalities which were not powerful anymore. They did not, and the reason for that was, it was extremely expensive to maintain a standing army. Extremely, except for large empires, it was very difficult for anyone to maintain a standing army. So what used to happen was that small principalities would either merge with the bigger principalities and pay revenues and get their armies help whenever they needed, or they were annexed by the bigger ruler. This is right after, this is that transition period. This is, we are talking about 1708 to around 1757 when the Battle of Plassey happened. In that time, there was no, what do you say, out and out power in India after Mughals. Everyone was trying to fight it out. So that's, yeah. Okay, this one is a nice one. So General A is a unique figure in imperial history, remembered for a humiliating defeat on one continent and a crushing victory on another. His career seemed over when the global conflict between British and France cornered him at the Battle of B in 1781, where he was forced to surrender to George Washington, effectively losing American colonies. Okay, Wellesley is one answer, but no, that's not, yeah. This, you guys must have heard his name, I'm 100% sure. Remember one or two or three of them that you remember from your history books. Seeking to rebuild his shattered reputation, he was sent to India as Governor General. Here, he reversed the isolation of British Army by securing the support of Sikh Confederacy. That Maratha Confederacy. A powerful native power that had previously been at war with the British, marching together in a triple alliance. So Marathas, British and Nizam, they besieged the capital of Mysore. This victory was absolute. Under the Treaty of D, the ruler of Mysore, which is Tipu Sultan, was forced to surrender half his kingdom and hand over 2 sons as hostages. Cornwallis. This is Lord Cornwallis. So Cornwallis lost a battle during the American Revolution. The Battle of B. Any guess? B, you can guess actually. Like famous city ka hi ek version. Battle of Yorktown. And he surrendered to, at that time, to revolutionary forces, and of course which had like some part of French army. I think we discussed this a lot of times last time in our last quiz. So then Cornwallis was sent to India, and where he won Mysore for them. Yeah. This is a very, very nice thing, because this is a letter evidence. This is a letter that Cornwallis had written after this Treaty of D to British. This is a very nice thing he said, nice as in like nice for a British Empire, but but he was just trying to, gloat how cool I have done, like what a cool job I have done here. So let's go. So yes, Lord Cornwallis, Battle of Yorktown, Maratha, which we guessed, and Treaty of Seringapatam. Yeah, and this is the quote. Without making basically Marathas and Nizam too formidable.
So Nizam also was his friend.
Yeah, so Nizam was everyone's friend. Whoever was giving him more money. No, absolutely, that is how, in the first Anglo-Mysore war, Hyder Ali literally bought off Nizam and Marathas. He paid off Marathas, he paid off Nizam, and he fought with British and defeated them. Hyder Ali is Tipu Sultan ke pitaji. So Nizam was literally everywhere. He would just be like in a comfortable state. And Nizam's empire was big. Hyderabad was a big empire at that time. You guys are enjoying, or is okay? Yeah. Okay.
This whole thing is painted on the walls. I even if you go now, you can see
With Tipu Sultan wala fight. Because we were talking about history being contentious, Tipu Sultan is one of those figures in history. Right now, recently, Vikram Sampath wrote a whole book on Tipu Sultan, and that is taking a very revisionist approach to his legacy, where Vikram Sampath has said कि ये बहुत ज़्यादा communal था, इसने बहुत ज़्यादा killings किया, massacre किया, Christians, Hindus सबको मारा, ये letters में ऐसा लिखा हुआ है, ऐसा लिखा हुआ है, ऐसा लिखा हुआ है. There are historians who take a balanced view, who say that yes, kuch massacre, kuch communal, conversions, all of that happened, but it was only moved, like the whole idea was to expand his empire, make himself more powerful. There is also one like history ka piece where they say he was one of the most technologically advanced rulers, right? He tried to bring in lot of technology, and
He used gunpowder, he was the first one.
yes, Tipu Sultan also tried to establish contact with French and Ottoman Turks in those days to fight with the British, but failed. Third, he established a very direct revenue system, and that also caused a lot of anger within the landowner community in his empire, which were both Hindus and Muslims in some parts, which was that we will directly deal with farmers. And Tipu Sultan was also a ruler who introduced cash crops in a big way, because he understood that by harvesting cash crop we will generate more money, and he started putting all of that money into military. So that was how it worked. But again, as I said, it's very, it's very hot debate right now. Like if you follow Tipu Sultan, is very contentious personality in history. And yeah, so yeah. Okay, Poison Alliance. This is a very simple question, but this is a very important one to, like how British figured India out kind of question. I arrived in India with a policy that would expand the British Empire more than any war. My predecessor, Sir John Shore, followed a policy of non-intervention. Okay, so this is right after Robert Clive. John Shore had come for some years, and Robert Clive ने एक बहुत रायता फैलाया था. There was massive anger. So Robert Clive was tried by British Parliament after he went to Britain because of the massive amount of money he had accumulated through corruption. And they say finally he settled in France and died there. So when John Shore came in, British were still in that mode that we don't want to disturb too much, we just want to take as much money out. This Governor General who came, he reversed it. He offered Indian rulers a shield that British troops will protect them from their enemies. In exchange, they had to expel all Frenchmen. This is very interesting, by the way. Even Nana Fadnavis had taken French help. Nana Fadnavis had a French consultant war strategy with him against the British for some time. And so did Mahatma Sindhya, right? And so did many other rulers. They would invite French and Dutch people because they knew that they were fighting against each other, to become consultants. So this was one condition, that you will expel everyone else except a British resident in your own empire and pay for the maintenance of our army, British army. And British army was not British. Yeah, that is another fun thing. British army was Indian people having British weapons.
This is like Gabbar protecting the people from himself.
Yes, exactly. Right? And so this system turned independent kings into reliant puppets and allowed British to maintain a massive standing army. See, this was the biggest strategic move. Massive at the cost of Indian natives, of course. The Nizam of Hyderabad was the first one to accept it. See, Nizam was always ready. Right? So what is the treaty, what is this thing I'm talking about?
Who's this person?
One, who is this person and what did he introduce?
So it must be Cornwallis only now.
No.
Did Clive come back?
Right before Cornwallis there was one.
Warren Hastings.
No, did Clive come back? He came back. Clive came back twice now. Like, he came back.
हाँ, but वो उसी में ही हो गया था. 67 he went back, I think 66 he went back, came back to 68. So this treaty or this, offer is called subsidiary alliance, which was introduced by Lord Wellesley. Okay, and very interesting thing, see, when India was becoming one after independence, when Sardar Patel was going to principalities and saying like accept, sign karo, accession pe sign karo, ya ladhai karo, jo karna hai wo karo. These were the three things that is written on the instrument of accession. Defense, your defense is our defense. Foreign policy, your foreign policy will be ours, we will decide your foreign policy, and communication. These are the three most important things even on the instrument of accession. So you give your defense to us, you give your foreign policy to us, and communication. That's exactly what subsidiary alliance was. So this British incident was a consultant around foreign policy. किसके साथ ally करोगे, नहीं करोगे, all of that. Of course, he was also a spy. Right? Or a political spy. So very important thing, and now the British army is in the within the empire boundary only, so कोई कुछ भी हो नहीं सकता है. Nothing can be plotted against the British. So बहुत ही peaceful तरीका था ये to annex as much as you can. So it started with treaty. अभी देखते हैं, अभी आज ये question है मुझे. What? Anything, any correspondence that as a monarch I am doing with any other monarch or any other party. Everything. Yeah. In effect, they were kind of jail. In fact, later on, they also started them on a pension system. You will pay them just chill. And they all accepted because after a point there was no option. Yeah. You see that kind of picture in Lagan, if you have seen Lagan, like where the king comes and like there is whole pomp and show, and the king is just pushing. Okay, there is another bit to this, which is the British are still not the face. The face is still the ruler, and that's why people are chill. Hey, Raja to hai. Whoever rules, we can only see those. British are still at the back. That is the beauty of, like, beauty is not the great word, but the darkness of this alliance, right? That you are still showing the same face, but now you are controlling it in a big way.
Did they have a strategy going on? Like, okay, now we send Hastings, now we send Wellesley, or was it very random?
Very good point. Actually, very, very good point. So Cornwallis, after he lost at Yorktown, was completely out of favor until the Prime Minister became his guy. So a new Prime Minister came in who sent Cornwallis as a Governor General as a favor. So this was all based on how the political situation was there in Britain at that time.
But they were not thinking.
No, they were not. Not yet. Why? Because it was still East India Company who were having a monopoly. So Parliament was controlling it, but not directly. The Crown was still not in control.
So the Prime Minister decided.
Prime Minister decide, like Prime Minister as in like, yeah, if you were close to Prime Minister, good things. So, by the way, another bit. India was an extremely lucrative outpost for British. In fact, the word Nawab, which is a very British way of calling Nawabs, officers of East India Company who returned back to Britain were called Nawabs. Because they came back with a lot of money. So it was like, you know, like how people from our country sometimes go to other countries to earn. So like you come back rich. So that's how East India. It was a tricky place to go because there was so much risk. India was of course unknown place to go and all of that. Diseases, this, that. But a lot of lucrative reward to take that risk. Okay, suicide of an empire. This was marked not by foreign invasion but by internal strife. After being defeated by Holkars. So this is how it started, right? Like they started fighting amongst each other. Right? So after being defeated by Holkars, the Peshwa A fled to the coast and signed the infamous Treaty of B in 1800. This is where the second empire who accepted subsidiary alliance. Right? Effectively surrendering Maratha's independence. While this triggered a second Anglo-Maratha war, the final blow came, which is the third one, during the tenure of Governor General C. Now, he signed this treaty. And then, of course, after signing the treaty, he started thinking, no, we should get the freedom, we should get back, we should fight. And they tried and did a rebellion and was decisively defeated at the Battle of D in 1817. That D is a very common name you would know in Pune. A region in Pune. I think someone even... Khadki. Yes. So that's the battle. Battle of Khadki. As a result, British abolished the title of Peshwa forever, exiled A to Bithur. It's a very and created a small princely state at E. What is E? For the descendant, that's the clue there. For the descendants of Shivaji Maharaj to placate Maratha pride. What was the seat of Marathas at that time? अरे अभी भी आप देखो, अभी भी शिवाजी के वंशज कहां से फाइट लड़ रहे हैं? सातारा. So they found some connection. They picked the guy. They made him ki tum ata H.A. Maharaj and you continue. And then they completely dissolved the confederacy. In each of the empire, a resident was placed as a part of subsidiary alliance. Everywhere. So that's why if you see, all of these places have cantonments. पुणे में एक रेसिडेंट बैठाया, वहां पे कैंटोनमेंट बना. इंदौर में कैंटोनमेंट इज इन माई टाउन, महू. सो वहां पे होलकर के लिए रेसिडेंट बैठाया. बड़ौदा में एक कैंटोनमेंट है, ग्वालियर में एक कैंटोनमेंट है, बैंगलोर में भी एक कैंटोन. जहां जहां बैठाया जाकर, जहां जहां रेसिडेंट्स बैठे जाकर वहां पर आर्मी बेस बनाया और वहां वहां आप देखोगे कैंटोनमेंट्स है. उस टाइम की है ये. उस टाइम्स yeah. Most of the cantonments are very old in India, and they were majorly for consolidation. So we will come to that question agle time pe, but I'll just say this, that railways were laid just to do this. This is basically cantonment spread over. How do I get all these Sainiks at one place whenever I want? So you take them. After 1857, British realized that we have armies at separate places, but we don't have a way to bring them together. So railways were brought in to do that in a big way. Okay. So ये क्वेश्चन का एक एक करके चलते हैं. सो बाजीराव द्वितीय, ट्रीटी ऑफ बैसिन. ये बैसिन इज द अपना वर्ड हिंदी वाला वसई. ये वसई है, ये वसई है. और ये हेस्टिंग्स और वो हेस्टिंग्स अलग अलग है. ठीक है, वो वॉरेन हेस्टिंग्स है. वो तो अभी कुछ सालों बाद मर जाएगा, वो वाला हेस्टिंग्स. ये नया हेस्टिंग्स आया था. ठीक है, तो कंफ्यूज नहीं होना है. दिस इज बैटल ऑफ खड़की, सातारा. ओ एक और था क्या बोनस कुछ? हाँ ये बहुत अच्छा था. अरे यार ये भूल गया मैं. दिस वन वॉज वेरी नाइस. दिस सो लब आई गए हैं तो सो दिस वॉज वेरी नाइस वन. आर्थर वेलेस्ली पहले इधर एंग्लो मराठा जिताया एंड देन ही वॉज द वन हु डिफीटेड नेपोलियन एट वाटरलू.
He's the Duke of Wellington.
Yes. Arthur Wellesley is the Duke of Wellington. Arthur Wellesley, हाँ वो बाद में ड्यूक बना. और ड्यूक इसलिए ही बना बिकॉज वो इतना डेकोरेटेड हो चुका था. नेपोलियन को हराना यूरोप में उस टाइम वाज लाइक माय गॉड तुमने क्या कर दिया.
He became Duke of Wellington after
बाद में
after defeating Napoleon.
Even Khadki was that, you know, he
एक्चुअली इन द हिस्ट्री बुक्स ये इसके बारे में बहुत पढ़ने को मिलता है. वेलेस्ली वॉज कंसिडर्ड टू बी अ वेरी ब्रेनी guy, like because even Napoleon was one of those, right, who invented techniques that were used by armies for generations later, right? So same for Wellesley, very brave, very brainy in terms of defeating the army, the enemy. Okay. Now we will come to, so बहुत लड़ाई वाला बात हुआ है. Now we will come to a little bit of revenue, which was the main thing that British wanted from here. So the revenue chaos in Bengal began with A. We know A, who secured the Diwani rights. This last वाले quiz में Clive. Clive was the one who signed that treaty of Allahabad with Shah Alam II, but established a dual government that allowed company officials, mockingly called nabobs, to amass massive illegal fortunes. So I'll tell you, like Clive, they say in today's amount, he had wealth of some 36 million pounds by the time he went back to Britain. So that is the kind of money he siphoned off from company, from India. To clean up this corruption, B was appointed as Governor General. I think we all talked about B. रॉबर्ट शोर के बाद एक और आया. रॉबर्ट शोर बहुत थोड़ी देर के लिए था. वॉरेन हेस्टिंग्स. He abolished dual system but introduced a controversial izaredari system where revenue collection rights were auctioned off to the highest bidder for 5-year period. See, I'll tell you what happened. So when Clive did all of this corruption, East India Company defaulted for 3 years straight in paying off the crown. The idea was ki whatever you get, you pay us. So 2 years, not 3. 2 years, they couldn't pay the amount of money they were supposed to pay. They defaulted. And there was therefore a tremendous anger in British Parliament against East India Company. Therefore, whoever was sent after Clive had one mandate कि वहाँ पे जाओ और revenue system clean up करो. Corruption हो रहा है तो करो उसका. Like we need consistent revenue coming from India. So now what happened was, in the subsequent period, everyone who was coming to India was trying some new revenue system. कि मैं ये ट्राई करके देखता है, तो we were like that experiment for them. So ये पहला सिस्टम ट्राई हुआ कि whoever bids highest 5-year पीरियड के लिए आपको दे देंगे और आप हमको जो भी पैसे दोगे, मतलब you will have to collect and give it to us. Okay? Now this of course proved disastrous. Why did it prove disastrous? One, no clear power and one by default. A lot of people defaulted actually. So what used to happen was, in these 5 years, the revenue is going up and down. There is no consistent revenue coming to the empire. Right? Sometime it is coming, sometime people default, sometimes something. So no consistency of revenue. So that was disastrous. So then, अब इसका एक और solution ढूंढने के लिए his successor C introduced D in 1793. जमींदारी है, उसको हिंदी में बोल सकते हो, बट वो सिस्टम दूसरा है. ये बहुत फेमस है, आपने हम सब ने पढ़ा होगा इसको हिस्ट्री बुक में. एंड वी नो दिस सक्सेसर ऑल्सो. अभी हमने क्वेश्चन भी पढ़ लिया इसका. Cornwallis. So Cornwallis introduced a system. What was the system? I think that the answer to the name of the system is also in the line. Seeking a permanent solution, his successor C introduced the system in 1793. That line has a word which is the name of the system. No, that line. Seeking a permanent solution, his successor C introduced the D system in 1793. D का word है उस लाइन में? नहीं. Permanent is the word. The system was permanent settlement. ये बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग सिस्टम इसलिए है because this was the first time when people became land owners. Until then they were revenue collectors. So Mughals did not do land. They were like, तो revenue collect करके हमको तो land हमारा ही. जमींदार were powerful but were not land owners in India. ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट बात है. नहीं थे तो उस टाइम पे भी कोई तो जमीन का वो ले ही रहा था, इंचार्ज जिसे कह रहे हो. रेवेन्यू कलेक्टिंग बॉडी थी वो, बट लैंड ओनिंग बॉडी नहीं. Yes, very good point. So all of these systems varied from which empire was dominating there. So when you think about बंगाल में मुगल एम्पायर था, तो वहां पे ये सिस्टम चल रहा था कि जमीन का रेवेन्यू तुम दोगे हमको, जमीन तुम्हारी नहीं है. What Cornwallis did was, like जमीन तुम्हारी है. And you will see this stayed like that even post independence. When finally abolishment of जमींदारी जब आया, लैंड सीलिंग लॉ जब लाया गया, तब जाके ये परमानेंट सेटलमेंट वाला सिस्टम खत्म हुआ. थिंक अबाउट इट. It started in 1792 or 93, went until almost 1962-65. So Nehruvian government was to dismantle through the land sealing acts. On a social level, who started Bhudan movement? Vinoba Bhave. So Vinoba Bhave was the one who started at a social level कि give the land away to जमींदार्स को जाकर ये बात बोले.
So E is Zamindar Abolishment.
लैंड सीलिंग एक्ट. लैंड सीलिंग कि इतना ही लैंड एक इंसान के पास, इतना ही लेवल, इस लेवल के बियॉन्ड नहीं हो सकता, उसको देना होगा, गवर्नमेंट ले लेगा वो लैंड. ओके, लेट्स लुक एट दी ठीक है. So Robert Clive, Warren Hastings, Cornwallis, permanent settlement, land ceding and Vinodam. Now I will also tell something very interesting. India is the only country right now, one of the few countries that still doesn't tax the farmers as it should tax them. And the problem happens because the pitch is that farmers are poor, how you can tax them. But let me go back to this question. See, one thing we have to understand is that becoming a zamindar and staying a zamindar for more than 150 years establishes social, economic, all kind of superiority that you will continue to enjoy even if you are not a zamindar. And what I mean to say here is that almost all the government schemes that are created for farmers are uska benefit rich big farmers को जाता है, नीचे जाता ही नहीं है. And why I am saying this with this group is getting crushed because of it. Because we are like a country where, you know, we have like a very small direct taxpayers, very small base of direct taxpayers. Given that we don't there is no revenue from farmers in a big way, and if you see, the empire's biggest source of revenue was farmers. So this is a case of completely swinging the pendulum on the other side and actually not benefiting in a big way from it, losing it in a big way. In fact, declaring yourself a farmer or declaring some part of your assets as farming assets is one of the best ways to steal tax in India. Like your CAs will also tell you, sir, usko farm declare kar.
Like industry.
No, absolutely. But what I was also saying is that demarcation of that even farmers should be demarcated as rich and, you know, well-to-do and not so rich and something like that. That never happened. So everyone was clubbed under one, and that led to a lot of still and no political party or government has that political will to change this. Yeah, massive drawback. This is very interesting. I'll tell you why. What happened was, so permanent settlement, the name Cornwallis gave in the hope that it was going to be permanent. कि अब तो कुछ करेंगे, इतना बड़ा मैं system ले आया. And that system proved very disastrous. Why? Because I'll tell you what was the deal. The deal was 10/11 of the rent collected went to British, 1/11 stayed with the zamindar. इसका सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम ये था, because it was fixed, British could not impose more tax. 1/11 ही मिलेगा, yield कितना ही बढ़ जाए 1/11 ही मिलेगा. तो ये बहुत प्रॉब्लमेटिक, लाइक ये पूरा सिस्टम बंगाल में लगाया था एंड इट ओनली स्टेड इन बंगाल. एवरीवेयर एल्स दे फाउंड न्यू वेज ऑफ टैक्सिंग.
Sarkar is the same thing. 7 went to the king, I think 12 went to the, or the other way around. Something like that.
7 and 5.
7/5.
7-5.
Okay. Where?
It was started by Ahilyabai.
हाँ, so those were more of, what do you say ki, like what I'm saying here is that the goals in both cases were very different. In this case, they were angry because they couldn't take more. In that case, it was more like, okay, fine, like these are our people, so we should keep it that way.
Okay, the limited
100% of whatever was collected, like 111. From him.
And Zamindar plus British together, what was the percentage of his Kamal taking?
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, I don't know. वो मुझे नहीं पता. हाँ, I'm sure. Yeah. That's a good one. हाँ. Okay. So, and one of the other things that happened was this, which was like becoming a legal owner of the land. These were like massive pieces of land. Like we are talking about बहुत बड़ा land pieces के बात कर रहे हैं हम. Yes, now this I think this is the final one. So ये permanent settlement fail हुआ, उसके कारण they brought 2 more new system. They were experimented in different parts of India. Anyone who can guess the name of these 2 systems?
Maybe Panchayati?
No, not Panchayati. So they were, you might have heard this. They were called Ryotwari and Mahalwari system. So Ryotwari was directly tax the peasant. Go to the peasant and tax them. Don't have a middleman. Don't have a zamindar. Don't have anything. Just go to Ryot and उनको tax कर दो सीधे. उन्हीं से tax collect करो. And have your guy go and collect the tax. Yes, the Ryot was a position, but at that time it was a tax collector ka position. Now it became कि we will deal with the peasants directly instead of having a middleman in between. And then the second one was Mahalwari, which was we will deal with the village head, small village head, and that guy will give us the revenue. Instead of again having like a massive zamindar or like having a huge tract of land. So these were like introduced. So UP and parts of region of Bihar, Ryotwari was introduced, and then Mahalwari was introduced in Punjab and northwestern part of India. This northwestern is Pakistan also. So that's how like this is a process of around 40 years they figured finally out कि कौन से system लाने हैं to collect land revenue. Okay, I think we are pretty much done today. Yes, this is the end. Thank you again. Was it?
You were a topic for next, so that you know we can read up.
Huh. So next one I will cover the abolition of monopoly. So we will move from now Maratha Empire हो गया है Britain का part. Now they are really big. And now, like Britain is feeling कि East India Company cannot manage this. So now slowly the crown will start coming in. So 1813, that we will also cover a little bit of education policy, which came in 1833. We'll go to first war of independence, as they call it, 1857, and probably we will go until the formation of Indian National Congress. So the start of Indian national movement. I'll also cover a little bit of the rise of communal threads in movement. Communalism कैसे आया इंडिया में, in the national movement कैसे आया, which will then finally lead to partition. So I can also do that.
Are there any books you recommend from this specific period?
So if you want to like जनरली रीड ऑन मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री, इसका जो एक आता है बिपिन चंद्र का एक आता है, इंडियाज इंडिपेंडेंस, इंडिया स्ट्रगल फॉर इंडिपेंडेंस। वो बहुत अच्छा किताब है, मतलब हाईली रेकमेंडेड, बिकॉज काफ़ी बैलेंस तरीके से कवर किया है उसको। हाँ, बिपिन चंद्र
So that covers all the way from
शुरू से। हाँ, वी डोंट हैव इट एट होम अभी। इट स्टार्ट्स विथ कैसे आए, एम्पायर कैसे बना, क्या हुआ, फिर नेशनल मूवमेंट, मेजरली फोकस इज ऑन नेशनल मूवमेंट, बट इंडियन नेशनल मूवमेंट, द राइज ऑफ इंडियन नेशनल। 1 to 15 इंडिया का, और उसको मुझे भी अभी पढ़ना है वो तो। आई एम इन द प्रोसेस अभी, बट येस आई एम ऑन इट।